Okay, it is 1 o'clock and we will go ahead and get started. I am just a couple of housekeeping notes. My name is Caroline Kazmersky. I'm the Director of Communications and Marketing for the EdFi Alliance. And very excited to have this webinar today. I think this is probably our first one of the year, and it's of such an important topic. The Texas Education Exchange is really something that is going to transform the state of Texas. And so we're really excited to be a part of this project. So just so everyone knows, I'm going to kick it off and hand it off to my colleagues. However, I will be monitoring the chat and the questions during the presentation. So if there are any questions that you have during the presentation, please feel free to put those directly in the chat. I'll be monitoring that. I know Jennifer will as well. And I actually will stop the presentation and ask your question right then and there if it's relevant at that moment. But there's no dumb questions. Please ask away. We want to have all of your questions answered today. And so feel free to put your question in the chat or the question function within the WebEx interface. I am recording this session, so the recording will be posted on the EdFi website and our YouTube page probably tomorrow. So if there are any colleagues that you know that wanted to attend this session that missed it, we will be posting that on our YouTube page, and I'll be sending it out to all the registrants as well. So you'll receive that in your inbox. And so with that, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Jennifer Duncan.
Thank you, Caroline. Hello, everyone. My name is Jennifer Duncan. I'm the communications specialist for the Texas Education Exchange. And I'm joined by our director, Jerry Lashley, who will be giving a lot of the insight into what the exchange is and his story. We're really excited to share a little bit about this project with you and what we hope to accomplish for teachers and educators across the state of Texas, and giving time back within your jobs and within the classroom as well. So I'm going to let Jerry go ahead and take it over.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Caroline. Good afternoon, everyone. As Jennifer said, my name is Jerry Lashley. I'm the director of the Texas Education Exchange, which is housed at the Region 4 Education Service Center in Houston. Next slide, please. So I've had this idea, this is actually year 5 now, of establishing a data platform based on EdFi technologies to provide additional services and support to our districts. We see this as a real solution that's available for now and for building into the future. So this is something that is going to be available across the entire state of Texas, not limited to just a few regions. It's not going to be limited to certain student information systems. This is truly going to be a service and platform available for all school districts and charters within the state of Texas, and supported by the education service centers. Excellent. There we go. So as I mentioned, it's statewide, and given the size of this project, we have just over 5.5 million students now in the state, and more than 1,200 school districts and charters. There are 20 education service centers spanning the entirety of the state and supporting your school districts. As you probably well know, the majority of the support that you get is through your local regional service center. Whether that's training and professional development to certifications, that's instructional certifications, as well as even bus driver certifications and child nutrition training. So I knew that Region 4 alone would not be able to support the size of this project. So I reached out to some colleagues of mine across the state. And so there are 5 ESCs that are a part of the founding cooperative, or the collaborative, during the grant period, which ends August 31st of 2024. So Region 4, of course, is the home of this. We work very closely with Region 10, which is out of Dallas. Region 11 is the Fort Worth ESC. Region 13 in the central part of the state is in Austin. And then Region 20 is down in San Antonio, which is also the home of the Texas Computer Cooperative and the Ascender Student Information System. The reason why the 5 of us are leading this effort going forward and building the platform and the development of it, and leading these efforts, is because we had experience not only in the EdFi realm, but actually in trying to have rollout of different processes and applications and services for ESCs founded on EdFi. An example of that, and we'll talk about that in a little later, is Region 10 CCMR Insights program that was built on EdFi, which has gone live now and will be the first ESC application that is connected to the Exchange platform starting in the fall. We, of course, could not do this without the support of others, given the size of the project. The Texas Education Agency is fully on board with this from the commissioner down. A number of his deputy commissioners were involved in the planning and the development of the strategy going forward with this. And there are, in fact, a number of TA applications that they're looking to move to the platform because of the efficiencies and the reduced cost involved anyways, operating costs in order to roll these out. TA, of course, provided the grant funding for this, a substantial amount of money for 2 years, which also includes the cost of the Exchange platform, and the core services offering with that would be included with the grant for free to all school districts through the end of that grant period. And of course, the EdFi Alliance, Carolyn is on this call. I was in fact in Austin at the Dale Foundation offices and meeting with EdFi staff all day for strategy planning. And they're a huge and strategic partner for this and moving things forward, and not only now, but in the future. Next slide, please. So as you well know, at your school district, you have data that resides in a number of different locations, whether it's your SIS platform, your learning management system, your different engagement communications platforms, assessment platforms. And generally, these are all hosted by the providers or the third-party vendors that provide the software and solutions to you, not only to the school districts, but also to the ESCs. And this data, of course, doesn't talk to each other very well. There's a lot of manual processes in place that requires your technology department and others in order to support these and have them function properly for the district. So the idea for the platform for the Exchange is so that we can get all of the things into a central location. All the data is one common place and then can be used downstream for their leveraging EdFi technology, of course, and the data standards that are involved with that. And next slide, please. So again, not preaching to the choir here, your educators, you and your educators, your administrators, and the technology staff that support them, with data in so many different places, it gets very frustrating. So we wanted to make sure that we got as much involvement and feedback and input from educators and administrators across the state in developing this. So Region 4 and TEA partnered with a company out of Indiana, Resultant, who is very experienced in this type of field, and they had reached out and submitted surveys to more than I believe we sent it to more than 20,000 across the state, or 40,000, and we received responses back for a little over 4,000. And so what we selected was 1,000 educators, which were representative across the entire state in all 20 ESCs in varying roles. So not talking to just teachers, but to your administrators and principals, superintendents. It says on here, coaches, and that, even as talking to bus drivers, anybody that deals with student data, we wanted to get their perspective and input. And so we had over 400 LEAs across the state that were represented by these more than 1,000 that were polled. And so that survey helped us focus down on what we were looking to focus on and prioritize as far as the development and what we needed to do with applications and services for the platform. Next slide, please. So thinking about the Exchange platform, there are 4 key tenets that we wanted to make sure and address with this. And the first one we want to recognize is that it is made specifically for the Texas market and built and serviced by the education service centers. It's nothing to slight any vendors that might be on the call or any other agencies. There are other software companies that have EdFi as a service and data warehousings and those types of solutions. But we wanted to make sure that it was something purely focused to the Texas market. Something that is much like building a house. You have a very strong foundation, and from there you can build anything that needs to be done. So to be flexible for now into the future, as we've been presenting this to school districts and to service centers across the state, you start seeing the wheels turning and people are thinking and they're going, oh, great, well, this could really help me with our data issues related to Head Start, as an example. So, which means if that's a priority for us, we'll start focusing on that and building those resources for now and into the future. Next slide. Of course, this technology and the platform is based on EdFi. So the state of Texas was the first to adopt the EdFi data standards. Of course, with EdFi and the Dell Foundation being housed here in Texas, it was important that Texas was the first and hold the baton and go forward from there. So we're leveraging that. So we're making sure that this platform and all the systems connected to will leverage and utilize that technology with that common standard language. All of the data is going to be held into one location, and we'll talk about that here in a little more in the future of this presentation. EdFi, as you well know, the resources are available free. All technology providers will have access to this if they want to become badged or certified in the EdFi and receive their gold star. And of course, there's the support community. There are many agencies and state organizations that are looking what the state of Texas is doing related to this project. And the reason for that is a lot of states, and I always defer to Michigan. My friends Don Daly and that group in Michigan done an outstanding job with what they've done over the years and have been the gold standard that I'm looking to achieve and a little friendly competition to surpass them. So that is the goal of this, is that these other states will see what we've done and what we're trying to accomplish, so then they can start replicating it as well.
Jerry, I just got off the call with Dawn. We're doing a big case study on Michigan. And so I think he would accept your challenge, because he was saying how, you know, it took them 10 years. You've got 2 years. So the clock has started.
Yes, the clock has started.
They worked really hard for 10 years, but they were really doing it kind of a different approach. But I think that he would accept your challenge.
Definitely. It's wonderful because we've been able to work so closely. Whenever I found out what the Michigan group was doing, the Michigan Data Hub, at an EdFi summit 4 years ago, a few weeks later, I was on a plane and up there visiting with the group and spent several days up there along with EdFi members, EdFi Alliance members, and the AWS team. And it was so beneficial because that's the whole idea of the community, is you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You see somebody else who's done something better and you might want to change it or enhance it or do something different. That's the opportunities that are allowed with us. So it's an excellent opportunity. As you probably know, TEA is starting the modernization effort for the latest version of EdFi for state reporting. I won't go into a lot of details, but if you have questions related to state reporting or a school district in Texas on this call, feel free to ask questions. I will do my best to answer. But what we're looking to do is the TSDS team at TEA is creating an individual operational data store. So that IODS, as they're referring to it, for every school district and ESC in the state for state reporting. And they're working with the SIS providers. The SIS providers on at least a daily basis will be pushing data into those IODSs, which can then be collected and streamed out what was specifically needed for TSDS and state reporting from there. And that's what the idea is, just to lever this if data is in a central location. This slide is going to be updated because the path that we're going down during the beta districts for the exchange is we are mirroring TEA. And in our region 4, or the exchange's cloud environment on AWS, we're mirroring, and we're going to have a separate individual ODS for every school district and ESC, just like TEA. And so then all of the other systems, our developed apps that we created, ESCs, assessment platforms, LMS platforms, and so forth, all the third-party integrations that meet our standard will be connected through our IODSs for downstream use. And that will be in a single location. It will be highly secure, of course, in AWS's environment and with the cybersecurity framework that we're going to have for that. And then we're going to use simply an API publisher to publish state reporting data only to TEA's IODS. That's our current plan on the beta. That was differed from presentations we've had in the past, and it's a new development. So I wanted to highlight that we're going to be testing that, which is slightly different than what we originally planned and what other states have done. If we're successful with this, then we will continue down that path of publishing the state reporting data over to TEA, which lessens their amount of operating cost and what they have to do to maintain those servers as well. And the next slide, please. So going back to the market research that was performed by Resultant for us and all of the feedback, extensive feedback, there were 4 key things that were at the top of everybody's list that they felt that needed to be addressed. And the first is related to data quality. Is the data we have in there actually accurate? What is negatively going to impact our funding, which we see in special populations? So what we're going to incorporate into the base offering of the Exchange platform for everyone is an operational data store health check. We're in the process of heavily strategically planning for that. But the idea is that your PEIMS coordinators or your data quality analysts at your districts who deal primarily with the student data and state reporting would be able to run these validations and business requirement reports on a regular basis, schedule them, much like an early warning system. They would come in every day or once a week. You'd have a report, and then they can go in and change the data in the source system. So they can be more proactive and more efficient in cleaning up your data along the way versus the way it is now where you load your XML files one at a time to TEA and promote and validate the data, and then you get your report back with all of your warnings and your exceptions and your fatals, and then have to clean the data up. And you're more than often and also reaching out to the ESCs for support and getting those XML files very cleaned up. So that's the one key thing that we're going to have as the base offering with this. The second one is the single pane view of student services. Our educators and administrators, whenever they're either meeting with families, meeting with the student, or if it's an IEP a meeting, or even just a meeting with the administrator, they would like to have one place that they can go to find all of the information about that student that they're legally allowed to see. I must preface that. So that's what they would like to do, much like a baseball card is for a player. Do you see all those stats and all the information that's pertinent to see? That's what the educator would be able to see on that student versus having to go to 3 or 4 different systems. The third thing, based on the research that we were going to incorporate in the base offering, is rostering, roster synchronization. I know Clever is in the marketplace and they have this offering, and several others do this, but there still seems to be some issues, especially for small districts who don't have the staffing and resources to make sure these things are happening. So if you're a customer of the Exchange, your district is signed up on the Exchange, we will handle rostering with all the applications that are integrated into the system. And then finally, something that's really important to us and to me as well, I wanted to make sure, and I was happy in some ways to see that it was in the feedback and the research, of the concept of a portable student records. We'll have this fancy and name something whenever we roll it out. But the current process is if a student is at one district, say, I'll just an example, Houston ISD here at Region 4, and their family moves and they're now in San Antonio ISD at Region 20, they will submit, that district the student goes to will submit the request for records through TREX to the district that the student came from, in Houston in this case. And Houston has 10 days, 10 business days to respond to that request. And what we see is everyone typically waits to the last of that 10 days to finalize the response. And the reason for that is not that the staff registrars, administrators and mission clerks, it's not that they're being lazy or putting it off. It's just the process tends to be cumbersome because they're having to manually collect paperwork from different departments and who's supporting that student and getting IEP 504 information, and then scanning it and loading it into the TREX system and submitting it over. So what we're trying to do, and we're working very closely with TEA's TREX department and accountability on this, as possibly as a future complete replacement to TREX, which means that application will be available for free for everybody, but only that application on the Exchange. And we would, with the click of a button, that district, so San Antonio would submit the request through the Exchange platform. Houston would get the notification via email, and in the email can say confirm or log onto the Exchange and say, yes, that student was our student. I confirm. You can receive the information. And with the click of a button, as much information as possible based on using the EdFi API and what the data is stored in the ODS, that data would then be pushed from that district's ODS to San Antonio's. And the ultimate end goal would be that data would seamlessly flow in and right into the student information system. That's a big thing, and all SIS providers and SPED providers for software would have to be on board with that. But that would be the ultimate end goal. So that student's not there for 2 or 3 weeks and not receiving special services that they would be missing out on would be very detrimental to that student. And I've actually seen that happen in the real world. So, okay, next slide. Are you going to talk about this one? Yes.
Yeah. And so talking about some of those use cases, those 4 top priorities that we're looking at building for the exchange, one of those we want to talk about is a single pane view of student information and benefits and what that means for teachers. So we have had this teacher up a little while ago. This is Renee. She's a middle school math teacher. She really likes data. She loves to be plugged into what's going on across campus, and she's an early adopter of different technologies. She knows that there's some kind of solution, but she is trying to find what that may be. So with a single pane view, what she gets is a really good snapshot of what she needs to see in her classroom, whether that's one student or a group of students and how they're performing. And it allows her a lot of ability that she may have not had previously with that view, a holistic view of what's going on. Now she has the ability to talk with parents and be able to show them actually what's happening with a student, whether it be bad or good or both. It could be behavior to what that student's doing in the classroom and the grades to maybe even what they're involved in and other aspects of what they're doing in the school. It also allows her the ability to understand the performance of her students. And so now she can see what's happening as she's teaching them, as they're taking tests or doing their work. And if there's something that needs to be corrected and that data informed decision that she needs to make, she can do it right then on the fly. It allows her that ability where she may not have had it before and is having to look at past data points that aren't serving what's going on right now for those kids. It also allows for easy access to that holistic data. So that student's full picture of what's happening. Like I said earlier, maybe she's showing that parent that kind of visualization or report, but it also allows her to see those points that she is able to see, like Jerry said earlier, of what's happening for that student. Because say Patty does have a problem and it needs to be addressed, now we have that chance to go back and see maybe why or what is causing that problem. Maybe there's something else going on that the teacher, like Renee, was not aware of. And not to mention the fact that now she has that ability to collaborate with other teachers on campus. That really strengthens the bond that they have. It helps with their abilities to handle students or classes as a whole for maybe a subject matter or maybe for those specific students. And it really creates a very strong culture on campus, allowing them to have that data culture where they can talk about those things, learn from it, and then make it better.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, there are a number of ESC, well, not a number of ESC applications, but there are quite a few that are available in the market. And specifically, I mentioned Region 10 being part of our cooperative in the beginning during the grant period with their Insights program. So this is a really good example of a product built by an ESC on EdFi technology that can be rolled out through the Exchange platform at reduced operating costs. So versus Region 10 trying to host their environment and their data warehouse and pay for additional licensing fees and BI and certain portions. If they leverage through economies of scale through the Exchange platform, then that reduces their operating costs, and in turn, they can lower the costs that they charge the school district. So something to keep in mind, we like to use the Insights example as the first ESC product that's going to be on the platform. This product itself, I won't give you a demo on this, but we just wanted to highlight the return on investment with this. So because it can increase your bonus funding related to CCMR, go ahead and keep on the previous slide. If you go, essentially this program will find additional funding that you would have lost before of trying to determine your CCMR program and your submission itself. So that's what this program does, is it automates you, it gives you real-time information, dashboards, visualization from all of the source systems that pulls through via EdFi into their platform to give you that reporting. And what we've seen is the school districts that have signed on to the Insights have seen a tremendous increase in the funding that's come to them through CCMR. And so we like to highlight that ROI. Yes, there would be a cost for paying for the Insights program, although it is funded through a foundation through the end of our grant period, matching us for free as well. That ROI, whenever you start paying for the platform, will not only pay for the Insight software, which is at a low cost, but will also pay for the Exchange software and the platform and services, which is additional cost, but also a low cost. So we want to make sure that people are aware of that when we talk about that. Next slide. This is just a screenshot of the CCMR Insights tool and what it shows with with House Bill 3 and some of the outcome funding as a resource. Mesquite, there's a quote here from an administrator at Mesquite ISD. I believe they have around 45 school districts across the state that are using the Insights program, and there will be significantly more coming on in the future as they're marketing it and they're working with us as the co-marketing. To purchase the Insights program once it's connected to the Exchange platform would require you to be a member of the Exchange as well, however. The next slide. So I mentioned earlier there were 4 key tenets related to market research. Overall operating, there are 4 key components that we wanted to make sure we love to highlight for the Exchange. And the first is this full district implementation support. Your school district, you sign on with us with the Exchange platform. This ties into the second bullet as well with provider integration. For paying for those services, it's white glove service. You would no longer need to handle your implementation and integration. We would work with your vendors and third-party providers to connect those applications and those services and that software to the Exchange platform and test it and make sure everything works. And then whenever it's ready to go, we would train you and support you on how to use all the functionality of the platform, along with ensuring that it works for state reporting, which is going to be a highlight to this, or a huge benefit for those on the Exchange when it comes to TSDS and state reporting. And the third thing is the develop apps and marketplace. This would be a location both on the Exchange website and on every collaborative ESC's website, but it is also going to be part of our community. There's going to be an application marketplace where you can go and see all of the applications that are available and approved to be connected to the Exchange platform. So you could basically shop there and say, oh, well, this is a new accountability platform. I never heard about this. And you can get more information from there. And it would show you who the contact is for the state and how to access that. And following along with that is going to be the community building platform, which is our online community, which I don't believe anybody else does at this moment. And this online community will be the website that individuals would log in. So every individual utilizing single sign-on and multi-factor authentication would log into the Exchange. And they would have some customized things that they could see on their dashboard and their viewing. But the headers on the top will lead to different things: application marketplace, and then the online community, which will incorporate training programs, videos, documentation and resources for help. There's going to be an online community communication, much like a blog. So someone could post something and ask for help or assistance. Hey, how is everybody doing this at your district, and get feedback. And we're also going to look to limit that. So if a high school chemistry teacher in the 10th grade wants to reach out to the other high school chemistry teachers in Region 10, they could submit that and limit it to that group of individuals, and then they would have the chance to respond to that. So those are some of the key things that we're looking to do to make it very much more interactive and rewarding for the end user. The business intelligence and the reporting and the applications are also going to be housed there, where they would be able to access it via an app launcher. There's a partner that we're working, I can't announce it yet, but there's a partner we're working through that will help us with the single sign-on, the app launcher, and that entire experience. So we're trying to make it so it's a one-stop shop, if you will, for a teacher to go to for all of the resources and applications that school district uses, whether it resides as an application on the Exchange itself, or if it's a third-party system such as on Data Suite or Forecast 5 or DMAC or something along those lines.
Yeah, Jerry, 2 follow-up questions. One,
yes,
on the timing, the community building platform and the Exchange, the marketplace itself.
Yes.
I know you guys are in beta right now. Can you speak a little bit to the timing of when you might have that platform, the community
Yes, and I think we have a timeline slide in the end, but the short answer is by fall of this year.
Jumping ahead.
Yeah, by fall of this year, we plan to have the core of just about everything available by September of this year. It's a very aggressive timeline. I know that makes people lot, not a distrust, but there's a lot of disbelief that there's no way you're going to build all of that by September. But going back to the funding and the community, we have a substantial amount of funding to pay for 15 vendors, contractors that are working on this with hundreds of developers, project managers, and architects. Again, we're not reinventing the wheel in many places. We're just making the wheel different and shinier in some respects. So we're leveraging experience that these other vendors have done in other states, and then just building it for here. So the plan is to have everything, the vast majority of things done by September this year, and then there'll be some other applications and integrations that'll come along after that.
And then for the entire exchange, and like, you know, you explained the user experience when someone would log in. Do you anticipate or do you intend that to be for educators, or do you primarily see administrators using the platform, or what is the key audience that will be using the platform? Or
the audience, I know this sounds a little strange, but the audience is truly what the attention is for everyone. Everyone will have, the plan is for everybody to get something out of the exchange as an end user. So we refer to the app launcher. So this, you would log in utilizing single sign-on. You would log into your exchange website, and then that's where all of the other third-party applications that your school district already uses would reside. A lot of the resources for the exchange would be there. So they're not having to log in into multiple different places. There's just that one location they can go to as a starting base for anything else that they need. Some of the initial, we're going to have some dashboards and BI built into the exchange based on market research. So if you think about, I think about my day, there's probably only 3 reports that I run every day or I look at. And at end of month for financials, there's maybe 5. So it's along that concept, or what are the top 15 things that people go to on a daily basis that they need to see? And then utilizing the app launcher, they can go to those third-party systems, those dashboarding systems for expanded stuff if they have a use for it. That's a good question, Caroline. Thank you. Okay, next slide, please. There we go. So as you can imagine, having the data in one location, there's a more efficient automated flow of that data to all these things. It allows for not only your school district and instructional leaders, but for ESC staff to provide real-time and improved services. So of course that data is more efficiently there within, we say real time, it's within 24 hours. You have to wait for the data warehouse to refresh. Usually that's the next day. But that's also much better than waiting several months later than what happens in many cases. Wraparound services. So instructional leaders tied into the ESC support. If we look at accountability, for instance, and TARP, if we have, usually with those reports, they're released, and that's where I mean this much later, 12 to 18 months later, you receive the report and accountability in your district. And in some respects, I hate to say it this way, sometimes it seems too late to have that information. It's like, great, I wish we had this 12 months ago. So the idea would be that there would be early warning systems related to accountability for your campuses and districts. So instructional leaders would get those reports, and then the ESCs, provided the school district is allowed them to see that it's aggregate data, they would also receive the early warning system. So they could reach out to that campus administrator, the instructional leader, and say, hey, well, I saw this report come in. Let's be proactive, and what can we do to intervene now to keep your district or your campus from going from an A or B rating to an F? And then, of course, this platform referred to economies of scale earlier with ESC products that are put on this. This goes for third-party vendors and tools as well. They could partner with us and utilize our low-cost pricing for AWS hosting and our data warehousing solutions to reduce their operating costs. So that means they could either have additional funding going back to their needs for future development. Because this platform allows for more data, they can offer more services to their current products. Or it could be that they decide our costs have gone down 25%. We're going to reduce our cost to the school districts by that much, things of that nature. So there are going to be some key partnerships that we're going to leverage through the exchange for reduced costs for communication systems, and for dashboards and reporting systems that would be available. No matter what, you'd be allowed to use just about anything that you want, provided that it meets the technical and cybersecurity requirements for the platform. Next slide, there we go. Perfect timing, cybersecurity. So this is of importance, and we've spent a lot of time in the last 2 weeks referring and talking about this and the strategy going forward. This was specifically written in the grant guidelines by Commissioner Morath himself. He wanted to see this placed in here. He says, if we're giving Region 4 in the state, the ESC is this much money for this, we need to ensure that the data is safe and secure and that people trust the process. The other components of that is, as I've mentioned, as long as a platform meets the requirements to connect to the exchange. What I mean by that is there's going to be the set of technical requirements that a product would need, whether that's an ESC or third-party vendor to connect to the platform. That would have to meet those minimum requirements. And then there's going to be a framework of cybersecurity requirements that those products will need to meet. That way we will eliminate the weakest link concept. So a program that doesn't meet requirements or is not up to the standards of the par, if that system were to get accessed or hacked, roughly, then that would be a backdoor way to get into the exchange platform. And given the volume of data that is going to be there by the school districts, we want to avoid that at all costs. So we want to make sure that data is safe, it's in a central location, everything is confidential. A key component for school districts, we have to make sure that you're reminded of this. We'll remind you, it's your data. The data belongs to the school district. It may be host in our environment, and we have data warehouses. You're allowing us to do that because you trust us with all of the platforms and systems we have in place to make it secure. And you are the one that allows who has access to that. So this is something we talked about the Michigan Data Hub earlier, something that I've learned from Michigan that they have got down well over the last 10 years, is they have essentially 2 levels of agreement. There's a base level agreement where that school district has access to the Data Hub and the platform and the resources, the reporting. And then there's a second level, a data sharing agreement, which is what we're using with our betas now, which is the National Data Privacy Agreement. We utilize that, which tells us that we have access to disaggregate data in order to better support you. So how that would look in the real world and how this rolls out is another ESC. You go to them, you're interested in the exchange, you talk through the process, you sign the contracts, you agree to come on board. If you sign that second level of data sharing, then that means the ESC would have access to those early warning systems and the intervention and everything else and better to support you in real time. So it's given that the platform is going to be highly secure, it's a really good way for you to receive those additional services. And given the trust that is typically there between the LEAs and the ESCs as well. And I mentioned, of course, it reside in your district IODS that we create for you. It's not going to be mixed with anybody else's data. That is your data. It's going to be siloed. It's a closed system. So it's not like in the past where IODSs have essentially been data lakes or data oceans, where there's just tons and tons of information from all different systems that are connecting in agencies. We're not going to do that. So we're going to make sure it's siloed and safe and secure. We like to hammer that because it's your student data, it's your staff data, and what we have seen now related to student data is elementary school student data is beginning to be the #1 thing that's being hacked and accessed because they can steal an identity of a first grader and then they hold off and they wait till that person is 18 and then they start opening up credit and doing things in that individual's name, and it's 13, 14, 15 years later. So we're aware of that, so we know that that is an issue and a risk, and we will be doing everything in our power to minimize that risk. I like to tout AWS. I know there's other cloud providers that are also very secure, but AWS itself, even the federal government here, because they kept getting hacks and having leaks, most of them have moved. The CIA, the NSA, they have actually moved to using AWS themselves because their platform has proven themselves to be so secure. Okay. Next slide, please. This is a high-level view of what the architecture looks like. This is the plain down version, as we like to call it, because there's a technical one that we use for technical roles for CTOs and so forth, but that loses everybody unless you are a CTO. So these are the 4 pillars of how the architecture looks for the Exchange platform. So on the far left are all of the data sources that your school district use, the ESC would use as well as customers. your SIS, your LMS, those assessment platforms, the things that we discussed earlier. That data would be pushed via an API, primarily an EdFi API. There's some instances where systems use a OneRoster API. But if that API exists, that data will be pushed over near real time from those source systems to the district's individual ODS. From there, the data would flow into the data warehouse where it's congregated. It's able to be mixed up, if you will. What I refer to as an IODS, you could think of that as a secure bank vault. That's where your data is safe and secure, all your data. And then it goes to the second level, the secure bank vault with the data warehouse, where it can be used to the far right column, which is what we refer to as the downstream use. Your reporting, your visualizations, your custom BI tools and reports, dashboards. And that's where the data can then be used and consumed over there. If a system does not have an EdFi API or a OneRoster API, but it still meets the technical and cybersecurity requirements for the Exchange platform, then there are ways to move that data from the far left column and bypassing the IODS into the data warehouse directly. That is available, but what we are going to be pushing is for just about everybody to adopt EdFi, become DAD certified, and utilize an EdFi API. The ultimate end goal would be that that's what everybody does, but I know not everybody has the resources to do that. So as long as they meet some of those requirements or the basic requirements for tech and security, then they can at least connect so your school district can use those resources. We do know, given the inventories that we have and talking with ESCs and what's used, we'd like to say is again, as long as it meets the technical and security requirements, we will work with you and integrate and connect to the Exchange. If it doesn't meet those, then we know that there are probably going to be systems that are in applications and software that districts are using or teachers are using. Not that they're supposed to, but we know individuals download apps and use things on their phones and tablets and stuff that they probably shouldn't be doing. There are probably going to be applications that cannot connect to the Exchange. It doesn't mean you still can't use it. It just means it cannot be integrated and connected through the Exchange platform. So going to the timeline, we are into the betas right now. We currently have 10 districts that are signed on to our beta. They are varying in sizes from just a few hundred at a charter to 74,000 is our largest. That is Austin ISD, in fact. They're on Frontline. And we're working with them during this beta phase to get them connected through our console. And the beta districts are going to be the ones that are going to be giving the most input and involvement as to enhancements to the product and the development as we roll it out and test it fully through the summer and leading up to the fall. There will be a second round of betas. So if your district is interested, then please reach out to us because we would love to talk to you. There's going to be the beta 1 now, and then beta 2 is later in the spring to start getting them connected by May for testing throughout the summer. And that second round of betas, we already know that we're going to identify 40 to 50 Ascender school districts. So I don't know if there's anybody who utilizes Ascender on here. But those products are sold and serviced and supported from 19 of the 20 ESCs. With our key partnership with them, we're going to have kind of a beta 2A and 2B, if you will. So 2A would be Ascender. 2B would be open to other SIS providers. And the things that we're going to be looking for, say you have 30,000 students, you use PowerSchool, and you also use OneData Suite, and you use DMAC, or you use Parent Square for communications, or something along those lines. You use Google Classroom as your LMS. Then we're going to take all those things into consideration as we build out and test the integrations through that second round betas through the summer. So again, if you're interested and want to learn more, we're more than happy to have an individual presentation to your leadership teams and technology teams and talk about that process in the beta and how we're going to select the next round. There's probably going to be about 100 in total between the second round beta, which is a big jump, but that's what we're pushing for. And then for the fall, what we mentioned earlier when Caroline had asked that question, it's going to be open for anybody come fall, September, October of this year, to sign on to the beta. A key thing that I want to highlight here is because this product is going to be sold and serviced by the ESCs, your ESCs are the ones who already currently provide your TS, DSP, and state reporting support. So if you're a member of the Exchange and you have your support through your local ESC, there's going to be products and services available through the Exchange that wouldn't otherwise be available for ESCs in supporting you for state reporting. So that means if you are leery and you're not sure about what's happening with the pilot in parallel years, next year where both systems are used, the new Ed5 standard and then the old XML file system to compare the two. If you have a lot of stress about that and you're unsure, then the Exchange platform and your ESC support is a really good way to go. And I'm not trying to over highlight that. We just know that that is a key thing that is, it's causing a lot of stress at the districts with this huge change and not knowing how that's really going to work. That we'll take that on for you. We'll do all the integrations. We'll take care of all the technology, and we'll let you know how it works and how it's done. But then our process is just to show you how to use the reports and the functionality for validations and checks, and the ESCs also would have access to that. So then all you have to do is worrying about on the TEA side within TIL of promoting and you're validating your data after you've gone through the cleanup process through the exchange. So it's a huge benefit, and that's the reason why I'm highlighting this. This is the first time I'm talking about that type of service as we're looking to grow that out. And then by fall of 2024, September of 2024 is when districts will have to start paying for this. You're probably wondering, how much does that cost? We do not have a firm figure on what it looks like. We're still working through the base model of the business model and what all is going to be incorporated. We have to factor in hosting cost and data warehousing cost and licensing and support fees and Jira ticket serving system, all of those things that go into operating a business. We're still fleshing that out, but we should have that wrapped up here in the next 4 to 6 weeks. And we're going to present that to the executive directors at the ESCs first, and then it'll be made publicly available once they're in agreement that that's an appropriate business model. It's more than likely going to be a low flat fee based up to a certain enrollment amount, and then after that it'll be a sliding scale on a per student. So I'm just making up a statement, it'd be $5,000 up to 10,000 students or something, and then above that it's a price per student that would scale down from there. So that's the idea. That's what CSIMR Insights is doing. That's what other states have done with these types of platforms. Unless we can decide the legislature to fund this and then it's free for everybody, but who knows with that. So, and the next slide, please. So just kind of to wrap this up, the Exchange platform and having the data siloed in one location. In this case, siloing is not a bad thing. It's really good when you can put all your data in one spot. So this efficient system will allow for a timely access of data. It'll be relevant, it'll be secure, it'll be accurate as well. This would be a good way for you to get a snapshot of how your students are performing, looking at that, that one student page and there's a report card and other things like that of data that would be available. And then with data free flowing and having these other support systems and wraparound services, both in your LEA and at your ESC, ultimately, the end goal of what we're trying to accomplish here is to focus on student outcomes and improving student outcomes. This is what it's all about. Giving teachers and educators time back in the classroom, even if it sounds like 15 or 20 minutes a day, when you add that up over the school year, that's a huge number of hours that could be given back to the teacher that could be spent working directly with the student versus trying to figure out how to get 4 or 5 Excel spreadsheets together to get to the data source that they need or support that they need. So okay. We invite everybody, if you would like to get more information, we'll share this slide deck out with you. We'll make sure you have this, but we encourage everybody as a next step to go to the Exchange website. It's txedexchange.net. There is a wealth of information there. We rolled out the second version of that here in the last couple of weeks. There's a lot of information there about frequently asked questions. There's some videos on there as well. And there's a way to sign up for more information to email us at the Exchange group. And there's also the link if you're wanting to learn more about Ed5 and the technology and the data standards. There's a link to the Ed5 Alliance's 101 course, which is highly beneficial. And it's what I would say is it's in plain language for everybody to be able to understand, because it can be a quite difficult concept to wrap your head around. So we encourage everybody to look at that as well.
Thank you, Jerry. This, as you're wrapping up that last slide, it just made me think this is really bringing to life the purpose of Ed5 and really kind of delivering on the promise that we have always been talking about and they've been
Right.
touting for years, and you're bringing this to life, which is so exciting. And
Yeah, and to add to that, Caroline, this is right now, this is K-12. We're going to add early childhood here as the next thing that we're probably going to do. And there's already discussions at higher ed across the state and the higher ed coordinating board. They know what we're doing and they're involved. They're like, how can we get involved with this? So we may have a pilot coming up with a small group of school districts and high schools related to community colleges and universities in their area. So talking about the portable student records, how quickly can we get that data and apply from high school to college and have the free flow of data going over? So the possibilities are endless for a lot of agencies and organizations here. So, but you're right, that's what this is all about, the EdFi data standard and technology.
so you're not busy at all, basically, is what you just said.
I like to
You've got
think
lots
big.
of time on your hands.
I like to think huge. Yeah.
This
I
is
don't ever
awesome.
think small.
For the folks on the line, I haven't seen any other questions besides Jeremy, of course, asked if we can send the deck and the recording back out, which we will. We are recording this session. We'll send this around via email and also put it up on our YouTube page. And we'd encourage you to get onto the Exchange website and sign up for their newsletter so you can make sure you don't miss anything. Any other questions? I didn't really see any in the chat or the Q&A, so it seems like you answered everyone's questions, and so I think we're good. So this concludes the webinar. Thank you all for attending, and we really appreciate your time. And Jerry and Jennifer, thank you for sharing your knowledge and info with us. So thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.